I make book-related videos every single Wednesday, and today I'm filming an annual video that I like to just do at the start of every year because my all-time favorite videos to watch my favorite YouTubers and booktubers do are more personal Q&A videos, just because as much as I watch booktubers to like learn about books, the real reason I'll like actually watch someone is because I find them interesting. So the more I can creep on them, the more I enjoy them. So that's why once a year I decide to do these, and I will have timestamps down below in the description bar because I know at least when I watch these videos there's always a certain section or thing I want to know about the person. So I asked you guys to ask me questions, both I think it was on one YouTube video and then on Twitter, and if I don't answer your question, that's probably just because I didn't have an answer to it. There were some questions that I got and I was like, I have no idea. Okay, so getting started, for the first section we're going to talk about books/booktube. So the first question I'll answer, even though this isn't related but the other two are, have you ever visited Delaware? Countless times. I used to live right next to Delaware, so I was up at the Christiana Mall all the time. What is the most disturbing book you've ever read? I think the one, not that it's particularly gory, it just disturbed me the most, was definitely House of Leaves by Mark Z. Danielewski. It was just the most unique and creepy reading experience I've ever had, especially when the one character is going like inside the house with all the like white everywhere. It's just so disturbing. What booktuber do you think has the closest reading taste to your own? So this question came up a bunch, and to all those types of questions I have to say that there are tons of other booktubers who read adult books, who read thrillers and horror novels. I want to say like 6 different videos on favorite booktubers, and I'll link my most recent one down below. But off the top of my head, if you're interested in some people who read thrillers, I would say Shades of Orange or Getting Higgy with It are both really good. The next question was, if you could rewrite one book ending, what would it be? And I would definitely have to say the ending of Night Film, and don't worry, I'm not going to say what the ending is, but I don't think it's a spoiler for me to say that you just don't get that much information. And I loved the mood of Night Film, but I personally disagree with a lot of people when they think that you can like solve it and analyze it yourself to figure out what the author thinks the ending was. I genuinely think that the author of Night Film just didn't know how to end the book. I don't know, maybe that's me being pessimistic, but it wasn't like House of Leaves where even though there's no closure, that felt right. Night Film, I was more pissed when we didn't really get any answers in the end. Addict Diaries asked, what equipment do you use to film, also edit your videos? So I film on a Canon Rebel T3i, and if you don't know much about the Canon Rebel cameras, that might sound fancy, but it's not. This camera I got on like Black Friday sale, and I want to say it's at least 6 years old. I think there's like at least up to like T7i or something now, and I edit just on the free iMovie that comes on a MacBook because I don't spend much time editing my videos. I'll be honest, I don't put a lot of effort into it. All I do is like play with the lighting slightly and then just cut out the awkward bits. KU14 asked a bunch of questions, and I think for this I'm going to answer the bottom 2. So she said, would you ever want to write your own novel if given the chance? And I have to say, as much as I adore reading, I don't have any desire to write. I don't think I'm an awful writer, but at the same time, writing creatively just has never been something that I'm super interested in. And the last question is one I think I mentioned earlier, which is, do you wish that there were more booktubers who discussed more book genres like you do rather than just YA? There are tons of booktubers who talk about adult books, and the reason I think a lot of you guys don't come across them is that unfortunately reviewing more adult books generally means you don't get as many views. There's some exceptions to that, but in general, just reading young adult books is going to lead to more views on your videos. And by no means am I saying, obviously, that anybody is reviewing young adult solely to get popular. I think people on Booktube read what they want to read. So there are a ton of adult book review channels, but a lot of them just tend to be a lot smaller, which means they're harder to come across, which is why it's so important to me to be constantly filming those favorite booktuber type videos, which I said I have like 6 of. Subordini Saha asks, would you consider including more diversity in the books that you read, a direction that many booktubers are likely veering towards in the past few years, and your thoughts? Definitely. And for those of you who are at BookNet Fest, when I was on the Booktube, what was the panel called? I can never remember. It was called Booktube More Than Young Adult or something like that. And the topic of diversity came up, and I'll say the same thing now that I said then, which is that I had the realization, and this was about a year ago, and I probably should have made a whole video on this because I could talk about this for a while, but you guys know I mainly read thrillers. And one thing I noticed about a year ago was that ever since Gillian Flynn became so popular, I'm sure you guys noticed because I've heard a lot of other people talk about this as well, every single other thriller that came out since then, I feel like said something along the lines of, if you enjoyed Gillian Flynn, you'll enjoy this. This woman's the next Gillian Flynn. This author is just like Gillian Flynn. And I swear to God, ever since then, it really feels like every single single thriller that has come out in the past 5 years and at least been marketed to be popular is by a middle-aged white woman. And so I've just noticed that I read a ton of thrillers, and a lot of those thrillers, like I said, happen to be by middle-aged white women. I think when I noticed that, felt like a lot of the same voices writing a lot of those books. So I have definitely been making and will continue to make even more of an effort to read diversely. But you'll have seen in my previous TBR videos and in my book hauls that I've had lately, I'm just really excited about some of the own voices and some of the diverse authors that I'm going to be checking out soon, and I encourage everybody else to do so as well. So the next questions have to do with my work and then also what it's like to be moving a ton with my job. So the first question is, could you tell us a bit more about what you do in your day-to-day job? For example, what your typical tasks would be for the day. So I will answer the question, but I will also say I have a video where I talk about grad school, my job, all that stuff, which I'll link to. But I went to grad school for industrial organizational psychology, which is basically the study of people in the workplace, and you can apply to kind of a wide variety of jobs with that degree. And I'm currently in a rotational program, so it's 2 years where every 8 months I move to a different business unit in the company I work for right now. Within each business unit, it's going to be a totally different job with a different manager, different part of the organization I'm working in. So it's hard to just like sum up what I'm doing. But the rotation I'm in right now and that I'm about to finish in a month, it's basically a lot of interviewing. It's a lot of just looking at the people data of the people in the company, just looking at reports, Excel sheets, making pivot tables, stuff a lot of people probably do. I think from when I talk about what I study, what I do probably sounds, oh, I like to think really interesting, but if you actually watched me day to day, I don't think what I do you guys would be really that excited by, but you know, I enjoy it. So the next question is, do you know what areas of the US you'll be moving to next? Yes, I found out about a week ago, and I actually just finished, which is why I'm sweating because I was nervous. I just finished applying for the apartment I want to move to. So you guys know I don't like to give super personal details. I know a lot of people are comfortable giving like their last name and what school they go to and all that stuff, and I am just not. But I guess generally I'll just say that right now my first rotation, or I'm about an hour-ish outside New York City right now, and I just found out that for my next rotation I'm going to be moving super down south, and I'm gonna be in Georgia. But I've never, actually I have lived in the deep south before. I lived in Alabama, but I was like 6. So I'll say I don't know that much about Georgia. I am excited for it to be less expensive than where I am now. But other than that, I don't know a ton about it. So if you guys have advice for things to do while I'm in the south for 8 months, I'll move there beginning of March. And I will probably be Instagram storying the moving process and showing the apartment and stuff like that. So if you are interested in that, make sure you're following me on Instagram. But yeah, so it's gonna be a big move, but I'm excited. Jesse asks, what's the toughest part of moving regularly? How does it impact your reading? So it doesn't impact my reading, I would say, but the thing that is the hardest, and just getting real and personal for a second, I would say that because I'm in my mid-20s, I do think it's hard when I'm seeing all my friends in relationships. And for me, if I were just being realistic, if I were to fall for someone, or if someone were to really like me, I would have to tell them, I don't know where I'm moving next. I'm gonna have to move again after, well, I do know where I'm moving now, Georgia, but I don't know where I'm moving after that for my final rotation, and I don't know where I'm gonna be working after that. So I feel like a lot of people have nerves being in their 20s and 30s and wondering what direction their life is gonna go. And as much as I'm putting work as my focus right now, it is hard to kind of put my personal life on hold. I mean, I could just go for it and date, but I don't know how that would turn out. So I would say that is just kind of the hardest part. Then Shimmering in the Sun asks, I would be interested to know how you settle into working life and if you're happy with your current job. Do you regret having to move every few months, or is it more like a welcome change? I think I've settled into the job and I don't get that nervous moving, so I think that's fine. But I will admit that sometimes I wish my job had a little bit more of a psychology focus. I knew it wouldn't when I applied, just because when you study IO psychology, you can go into such like a wide variety of things, and a lot of the jobs that are super specific in psych, there just aren't a lot out there. So sometimes I do wish I was doing more with psychology day to day, but overall I'm pretty happy with my job. 9 for Bree asks, how do you go moving for your work and making new friends where you live now? So I will say I know that some other people who are in the rotational program I'm in now struggle with that, and we've all talked about sometimes being lonely and not having like a core friend group where we're moving. I will say I'm kind of lucky in the sense that I moved so much growing up because I was an army brat, and then I moved for undergrad, I moved for grad school, that I kind of have a friend or two, I feel like sprinkled kind of all over. You know, I'm never gonna gonna be that person who is gonna be able to throw a birthday party and have 20 friends be there just because there's no state or city where I have, you know, a ton of friends. Well, 20 is a lot of close friends to have. I don't know. I think so. I just kind of pulled that number out of nowhere. But, you know, when I see friends having birthday parties and they can invite all their friends, I've never been able to do that just because all my friends are so spread out. So that's like a one very minuscule downside. But the upside is I feel like so many places where I move, I have a friend there. Like when I moved here to right outside New York City, I knew someone who's 5 minutes from my apartment right now. When I moved down to Georgia, I have 2 friends down there. So it's been kind of lucky and easy for me in that sense. And now we're getting into the miscellaneous section. So we're going to talk about personal stuff, politics, TV shows, and horror. Akaram says, great vid, and thanks for the heads up on Artemis. No problem, don't read it. He asks, how tall are you? So I am pretty tall. I am 5'8.5" or just 5'9" if we're keeping it simple. Lottie Da asks, I would love to know what your favorite horror movie series are. So I only put this question in here because I got a ton of questions about just favorite horror movies, TV shows, just why I got into horror, all that stuff. And I basically have videos on all of that stuff. So I will link my playlist down below, but I've done videos on favorite horror TV shows, favorite horror movies, why I love horror, favorite horror books, all that stuff. I don't expect you guys to have already seen all of them because some of them are really old, but they still represent the most of the stuff I like. So I'll go ahead and link those. Dale on Film asks, what are your thoughts on the current political situation in the United States? I would say that the main thing that's on my mind right now is that it does worry me that it feels like religion is playing a big role in the decisions politicians are making, and I'm very big on separation of church and state, so that's making me a little bit uncomfortable, and that's not anything against anybody's specific religion, and I feel like that's as in-depth I can get right now, or else it would be a very long video. Eliza asks, apart from other booktubers, what creators do you normally watch? I definitely love Jake Paul, even though he's not very popular right now. No, I'm just kidding. No. My favorite YouTuber, because I do watch a lot of makeup videos, has been for the past probably like decade, she's been making videos forever, is Emily Noel 83. Wait, Emily, whatever. She's one of the most honest reviewers out there. I feel like a lot of beauty YouTubers are just so over the top, and it's so many sponsored videos, and she is just so authentic and real. Not that there's anything wrong with sponsored videos, but I don't think she's even ever done one. And if you watch makeup videos, just make sure you subscribe to her. And then they ask, how's your family doing without Charlie? Do you plan to get another dog? So I will say we're still at the stage where if we really talk about him, we start crying. My parents are 100% going to get another dog, but it's going to be a long time until they're ready. My parents and myself were both at that stage where if we look at any dog online, like I was looking at pets we could adopt in the area, and every single one I looked at, I was just not interested in. And that's nothing like personally against those dogs, but I'm still just in that stage where I'm thinking so much about Charlie and I still miss him, and I'm just still at that point where I'm like, no dog compares to him. And I know that's how every pet owner feels when their pet passes away. So we're kind of still in that stage right now, but thanks for asking. On Film then asked, how many countries have you visited and what are they? I want to say I've visited around 10, and that'd be Morocco, Spain, Czech Republic, Germany, Scotland, Greece, Italy, Canada, France, and Malta. I feel super lucky to have been able to visit some of them. Some of those, like Germany and Czech Republic, we visited because my dad's first generation in the US, so we went back and visited a lot of relatives there. And then a lot of those other countries I visited when I was an English teacher in Spain. And you guys will know this if you've been to Europe or you live in Europe. It is so much cheaper to go from country to country than it is if you're living in the US, which granted, it makes sense because European countries, a lot of them are much closer together, but it's so much easier and cheaper to travel around when you're there. So when I was an English teacher, I used a big portion of my money to just travel as much as I could because I knew once I was back in the States, I just wouldn't be able to afford it. And for those of you who are maybe a newer subscriber, a few years ago, I was an English teacher in Spain, and I have a whole vlog playlist about all of that stuff. Devin Bomer asks, thoughts on the Bachelor franchise? Are you watching this season? I finally caved and I'm going to watch. So I do love me some reality TV. I love The Real Housewives. I love Vanderpump Rules. I like some really good TV, and then I like trash TV. But I will say I've always been super bored by The Bachelor or Bachelorette. There's sometimes I've been able to get into it, but yeah, I find for some reason that reality show really boring. However, one of my favorite podcasts is called Rosecast, and I'll link it down below. And it's 2 guys who just talk about The Bachelor and recap it, and it's so funny. They like to say that they're the best interracial bromance podcast, and I'll link them down below. Tell them I sent you, but they have, but yeah, I watched that even though I don't actually watch The Bachelor. Diana asks, I just noticed her thing's a slow ass reader, so am I. She says, what are your fave Netflix originals? Hands down, my favorite one of all time is The OA, and there's no way for me to describe what it's about without really any spoilers. I don't know how to describe it without giving away any spoilers, but it is easily one of the most unique TV shows I have ever seen. I think everything about it just captivated me, and I cannot wait for season 2. Howell asks, not sure if it's a good adequate question to ask here, but I'd like to know what other series you're currently watching. I need suggestions. So I know I've talked about this show before, but I'd only actually seen like 2 episodes when I recommended it, and right now I'm like actively going through it, and that's Penny Dreadful. It was originally, I want to say, on Starz or Showtime, but now that the series is over, it's on Netflix. I just finished season 1, and if you don't know, Penny Dreadful were little sort of basically horror stories that were given out. You could buy them for like a penny, Penny Dreadful, and you could buy those and just be freaked out for a little bit, and so the show is called Penny Dreadful. The acting, just everything is amazing, and I'm already just trying to savor it since there's only 3 seasons and no more are coming out. Ilpa asks, hi, what was your childhood like? What sort of things did you enjoy? So I think, like I mentioned earlier, I was an army brat and moved a lot. So most of my memories are being excited about moving and make friends, or just buildings outside with all of the moving boxes. So I was definitely, I feel like, the generation right before kids had cell phones when they were super little with Instagram and all of that stuff. So I would say I was outdoorsy, because I think most kids, my foot's asleep and I forgot where we left off. Then she asks, your videos portray you as a minimalist, and it's refreshing to not see an overwhelming amount of books behind you in your videos. Are you a minimalist in every aspect of your life? So I don't know if I would actually characterize myself as a minimalist, but I would say right now, okay, this is actually super crooked. I need to fix this. Was it this way the whole time? Okay, I think that's a little better. So I would say right now I'm a minimalist by necessity. Just because I'm moving every 8 months, I don't have the luxury of being able to like build up stuff everywhere, which I actually think it's a good thing for me to have been forced to learn to do. Just anytime I buy something, I think, do I truly want this? Which has made me buy actually just a lot less in general. Every single month I go through my whole apartment, whether it be clothes, books, anything like that, and I donate tons of stuff every single month. I've gotten to the point where I'm donating less just because I have a lot less stuff in general now. But it will be interesting to see if I keep this up, you know, after I finish moving so much. But I will say I've always been a neat freak, which I think kind of lends itself to being a minimalist. Then Laura asks, tell us a story, the worst date you've been on or the best. And she says, because I'm that nosy. So I would say most of the worst dates I've been on were all in Spain, and that's nothing against Spanish guys. Maybe it's just miscommunication because my Spanish wasn't the best when I was there. The worst one I went on was when I was living in northern Spain in Lugo, and there was a guy who was really attractive who sold headphones at the local whatever shop it was, and he's even in my phone still, is Adrian Auriculares. I can't say that word. Auriculares, whatever like earbuds is in Spanish. But we went on a date. I forget who asked who out, but he was just very reserved. He wouldn't say anything. But then, oh my god, I'm just remembering this as I said it. The most like, I don't remember what the context was, but he sent me basically like porn, and I don't remember. I think it was somehow related to something, but like, to be clear, we never kissed. Nothing happened. He was so shy and so reserved when we went on a date. I had to like pull words out of him, whether we were speaking in Spanish or English. And then all of a sudden he started sending me that, and I mean, I'm not a prude by any means, but I didn't know really what his point was. And then for the last question, Flashing Lights asks, are there any overarching philosophies you live by with how you're trying to become your happiest and most content self? This is the thing I've been struggling with over the past few years, dealing with a uni degree. I might want to switch. So with switching your uni degree, I do have a whole psych pop video on choosing the right job for you, so check that out, and hopefully that can be a little helpful. I would say for overarching philosophies, I don't know how to explain this, so this is probably a terrible question to end on because I'm not going to be articulate at all, but I do like to think, and this goes for anything in my life, whether it be relationships, friends, jobs, any of that kind of stuff, I just try to look at everything as objectively as possible and try not put a ton of emotion into big decisions that I have to make. And it's hard to describe that because I know that makes me sound like I'm very unfeeling and like I just don't have emotions, but I think I've noticed when a lot of people, including myself, are struggling or they're in arguments with people, it's because they're not thinking clearly, because they're thinking in terms of emotion instead of facts. And again, I don't know know how to describe this, and I don't even know if that really answers your question in terms of philosophies I live by, but I guess just with every decision I make, I just try and stay as level-headed and objective, and that tends to help me in the end. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Feel free to answer any of the other questions yourself, and I will be filming another of these in exactly a year, and I will see you guys next Wednesday. Bye.